They always said Lily was the sun and I was just the shadow. From the moment we could walk, she was the one in the expensive dresses, the one paraded in front of investors at our father's side, the one praised for every small achievement while I stood a few steps behind, smiling like it didn't matter. I learned early that in our family, love was conditional, and I didn't meet the conditions. When we were 16, our grandfather, the man who had built the family empire from nothing, pulled me aside after a dinner party. "You're sharper than they know," he told me. "But don't let them see all of it yet." I didn't understand then, but I remembered every word. Years later, at the reading of his will, I finally understood what he meant. The room was all polished wood, silk suits, and the faint scent of old money. My parents sat on one side, Lily beside them in a cream dress and pearl earrings, her smile perfectly rehearsed. I sat alone at the far end, waiting for my name to be called. It never was. The executor read through the terms, properties, shares, trust funds, all directed to Lily. My name appeared only once, attached to a token sum that felt more like an afterthought than an inheritance. The final blow was my father's proud smile as he announced to the room, "Lily will continue the Parker legacy as CEO of the family company, just as her grandfather would have wanted." No one looked at me. I waited for someone, anyone, to acknowledge the sting of it. But there was nothing. Not even from Lily, who met my eyes with a look that was half apology, half victory. I could have fought it, demanded to know why, caused a scene that would have sent shockwaves through the polished facade they loved so much. Instead, I smiled. I stood, thanked the executor for his time, and left the room without looking back. They thought I was walking away in defeat. In reality, I was walking toward something far greater. The next morning, I packed my things and left the Parker estate. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, and no one asked. I booked a one-way ticket to another city, changed my number, and let my name fade from society pages. If they noticed my absence, they didn't care enough to say it. And that was fine, better, even. It gave me the space to become someone else entirely. I started with a new identity, a new wardrobe, and a job working for a discreet consulting firm that specialized in high-net-worth clients. The work was fast-paced, ruthless, and exactly the kind of training I needed. Within a year, I'd caught the attention of Marcus Hale, a retired corporate strategist who had once been a major shareholder in the Parker empire before selling out during a bitter dispute with my father. He recognized me instantly when I walked into his office for an interview, but he didn't say my name. Instead, he slid a file across the desk and said, "If you want to win, you need to stop thinking like a Parker and start thinking like me." I took the file. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the shadow anymore. I was a weapon in the making. The first lesson Marcus taught me was patience. In the Parker house, patience had been something I used to survive. Waiting for my turn to speak, waiting for scraps of attention, waiting for the moment they'd see me as more than Lily's twin. But Marcus showed me that patience wasn't passive. It was a weapon you honed until the right moment, and then you struck so precisely that your opponent didn't have time to recover. His office was nothing like my family's boardroom, no marble floors or gold accents, just clean lines, dark wood, and the smell of black coffee. "This isn't about showing them you can win," he said one afternoon as I sat across from him with a stack of market reports. "It's about making them think you're not even in the game until you're already ahead." I threw myself into the work. I learned how to dissect financial statements until I could spot a weakness in 3 minutes flat. I learned how to negotiate in a way that made people think they were getting the better deal, only for them to realize later that they'd given me exactly what I wanted. I studied corporate takeovers, mergers, hostile buyouts, anything that could be used as a surgical strike in the business world. Marcus introduced me to people who operated so far above the social circles I'd grown up in that my family's elite parties felt like amateur hour. Hedge fund managers, private equity magnates, discreet political donors, people who could shift entire industries with a phone call. And I learned to make them my allies. It wasn't just my skills that changed, it was my entire presence. I cut my hair into a sleek style that sharpened my features. My wardrobe shifted from muted hand-me-downs to tailored suits and dresses that made a statement without needing a single logo. I stopped smiling unless I meant it. I stopped explaining myself altogether. By the end of my second year with Marcus, I wasn't just working deals, I was engineering them from the shadows. That's when Lucas came into the picture. He was an investor Marcus trusted, the kind who never wasted words and never lost his composure. Our first meeting was over coffee at a quiet rooftop lounge. He listened as I walked him through a potential acquisition strategy, his eyes narrowing slightly, not in skepticism but in calculation. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "You don't sound like someone trying to impress me," he said. "You sound like someone who's already decided I'm going to be impressed." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Lucas became my partner on several projects, each one more ambitious than the last. And together, we built something that had the potential to rival even the Parker empire. I was careful. My name never appeared on the surface. Every share I acquired, every company I influenced, it was done through holding firms and proxies. On paper, I didn't exist in their world anymore. In reality, I was weaving myself into the very foundation of it. My twin thought she owned the crown. She had no idea that every jewel in it was already mine. And when the time came, when the empire they handed her so proudly finally rested in my palm, they would all see exactly who they had raised, and who they had ignored. I built the ghost of myself on purpose. The world that had crowned Lily needed to believe I had vanished so that another version of me could move where her name could not. Marcus helped me map the path. We set up holding firms with simple names, clean logos, and quiet offices that looked like tax consultants rather than power brokers. We hired a small team who valued silence as much as skill. An analyst who could spot a hidden clause on the first pass, a lawyer who wrote contracts like they were puzzles, and a coder who built a dashboard that fed me live signals on markets tied to my family's empire. Each step made me harder to see and harder to stop. Deals came to us because I solved problems that kept other people awake at night. A supplier dispute that threatened a launch? I brokered a fix and took equity. A key partner ready to walk because of unpaid invoices? I paid them and tied the payment to a future right of first refusal. I never raised my voice, I never asked for credit, and I never showed my full hand. In call logs and board notes I was initials only. In person I was the consultant from North Lane Partners, a firm that did not exist 2 years ago and now sat in the center of more meetings than anyone could track. Somewhere along the way the industry gave me a name, the Ghost. It was meant as a joke, until they realized I moved contracts and votes with the ease of someone who had grown up watching power change hands across a dining table. Marcus liked the nickname more than I did. "A ghost does not ask to be seen," he said one night while we reviewed a stack of term sheets. "It turns up when needed and leaves when the work is done." Lucas joined me on the bigger plays. He did not ask who I was before all this. He cared about results and the shape of risk, and he had instincts I trusted. When we sat across from founders in glass rooms high above the city, he let me speak first, and when a room needed pressure, he added just enough without breaking it. We learned each other's tells, the small shifts that said a deal was close or sliding away. He noticed the way I tapped a pen when a number felt wrong and the way I went quiet when I saw a path through a wall. I noticed that he never gloated, even when we won by a mile. I tested him, the way I had learned to test anyone I meant to keep. I let a small detail slip about a pending vote on a company that supplied my family's retail arm. The vote mattered, but not enough to wreck us if the word leaked. It did not leak. Instead, a week later, Lucas sent a short message and a list of 3 board members who would sway if we offered them a path to growth in a region they had failed to enter. We made the calls, we made the promises, and when the vote came, it landed exactly where I needed it. Lily celebrated in a press release, smiling in a white suit with our parents at her side. She thanked the board. She thanked the market. She did not know she was thanking me. Moments like that did not sting the way they would have years ago. They fueled me. My work had a shape now, and that shape was a net drawing tied around the crown my family had placed on Lily's head without a second thought. While she toured showrooms and posted photos from charity teas, I bought the shipping firm that moved her products across seas. While she cut ribbons at polished spaces and beamed at cameras, I secured the lease rights on the back-end hubs that fed those spaces at night. I took small, smart stakes in the brands she bragged about saving, and I took larger, smarter stakes in the businesses that taught those brands how to breathe. The aim was simple: create a chain where I held the links. When a crisis hit my family's company, a partner in the tech side of retail threatened to end a key contract over late payments and poor terms, I saw the moment for what it was. Lily called it a smear and asked the press for patience. I called Lucas and asked him to set a meeting with the partner's founder off the record. We met in a quiet room above a dinner spot that served strong coffee late. I listened to what the founder wanted: clean terms, quick payments, a voice in future product features. I offered all of that and a path to scale in 3 new cities using a logistics grid I already controlled. In return, I asked for 2 things: a small stake that would not spook her board, and a clause that gave my holding firm the right to approve any change of control on that contract. She shook my hand. 2 days later, the headlines praised Lily for saving the partnership. She thanked the founder at a photo op and spoke of the bright future of tech in retail. My phone buzzed with a 1-line text from Marcus: clean. Lucas followed with 4 words: you timed that well. None of this was a game of big swings. It was many small steps that looked like luck until the map flipped and the shape of it became clear. In quiet hours, I worked through worst-case plans. I assumed Lily would stumble, and I made sure her stumble would land on a cushion I owned. I assumed my father would push back, and I made sure the investors who listened to him also took my calls. I assumed someone would try to pull my name into the light, and I set up a public face that could take the heat if needed. A polished director who could smile for cameras and say a lot without saying anything that hurt us. I did not plan for my mother to call me. When her name lit my screen late on a Sunday, the old ache stirred for a second before habit buried it. I let it ring once more, then answered. She spoke in a careful voice I knew too well. Come home for dinner. Your sister wants to celebrate. The company is safe thanks to her work. I stood at my window and watched the city move, soft lights on a grid of glass. I'm busy, I said. 4 beats of quiet. You always are. The line clicked dead. I did not cry. I poured more coffee and went back to work, and the steady lines of a term sheet eased the noise in my chest. The ghost was not a costume. It was the version of me that never needed them to clap. Rumors grew. A banker told a client that the person steering the fix behind the Parker Winds had a calm voice and a mind like a blade. A reporter tweeted about a pattern in filings that pointed to a silent group with reach across suppliers and leases. A rival tried to copy one of our moves and tripped on a clause I had planted weeks before. The name The Ghost turned up in a magazine blind item, and for a second I considered letting them print my photo just to watch the shock roll through my family's office. I did not. Patience, I reminded myself. The mask drops when the room is ready. Lucas and I closed a set of deals that tied 3 key vendors to us through performance bonuses and service credits that made moving away from our network too costly to attempt. We added a small but potent PR firm that could seed the right story at the right time without ever mentioning us. We invested in a payment startup that cut checkout friction for brands tied to my family's chain, then gave the tool to them first, free, so that when the numbers went up, they sent flowers to Lily and wrote her name on the card. I kept the card. I kept every card. They were not trophies. They were a ledger. Each one proof that I could build without applause and break with a whisper. On a clear night in late spring, I stood with Lucas on a quiet balcony high above the river. We had just finished a meeting with an investor who would not deal with my father and now would not deal without me. Lucas watched the water, hands in his pockets. How much longer do you want to do it this way? He asked. As long as it takes, I said. To do what? To make the ground under the crown mine, I said, and for the first time I allowed myself to say it out loud. When I step into the light, I won't have to fight for control. I will already have it. Lucas nodded. He did not reach for my hand. He did not make a speech. He understood that the closest thing to romance I could handle right now was the steady fact of a partner who saw the same map I did. The world still thought my sister owned the empire. The truth was simpler. I held the locks. She held the keys I had cut. And when the time was right, I would turn them for her. The crisis I had been waiting for arrived on a Wednesday morning dressed up as a routine supply update. A core partner in our family's retail tech stack sent a notice of intent to terminate, citing late payments, shifting specs, and a pattern of last-minute demands from Lily's team. In the old days, that sort of letter would have sent my parents into a fury and Lily into a glossy damage control tour. This time, the fallout was measured in real numbers. If the partner walked, our checkout times would spike, carts would drop, and the quarter would bleed out on screens we could not spin. I let the family war room play out without me. My father barked orders. Lily said she had it handled. The legal team drafted a stern reply that sounded strong and fixed nothing. By noon, the first banker texted Marcus asking if he knew anyone who could patch the pipe before it burst. He sent the message to me with a single word, now. I called Lucas and set the meeting for that night in a private room above a quiet cafe, the same safe ground where I had stitched smaller cracks before. The founder of the partner company arrived with 2 advisors and a stack of receipts, missed payments, scope creep, a clause my father's legal team had tried to slide into a renewal that shifted all risk to them. She was smart, steady, and done with being pushed around by a dynasty that thought invoices could be soothed with charm. I let her talk until the steam thinned. Then I put 3 offers on the table, each clean and fast. 1. Immediate payment of all overdue amounts plus interest, funded by North Lane, not the Parkers, to show good faith. 2. A revised scope with a fair feature roadmap tied to bonus triggers instead of threats. 3. The anchor, a convertible note from one of my holding firms that would give her the runway to hire and expand in 3 cities, paired with distribution and brands I already influenced. In return I asked for a handful of precise levers. Step-in rights if service levels fell on the family side because of their own delays, veto on any change of control for that contract, and an option to roll the note into equity at a discount in 18 months. None of it would hurt her company. All of it would bind the artery of my family's engine to my hand. She read every line, asked 2 sharp questions, and then slid the folder back to me. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. I told her the truth, stripped of names. "I back growth and I fix messes. This is both." She nodded and shook my hand. We signed at midnight. At 8 the next morning, Lily stood in front of cameras in a cream suit and said she had resolved a complex dispute through firm leadership and collaboration. My mother sent a photo of the press release to a family chat with a heart emoji. My father wrote, "Proud of you." The founder texted me a simple thanks and a promise to deliver. Marcus sent me a check mark. Lucas sent a dot, then another, then, clean. The fix was more than a patch. It was a hinge. With the step-in rights and veto in place, any future change Lily tried to make in that stack would pass through a lock that only opened when I turned it. I did not plan to use force. I planned to be the quiet constant that made every smart choice easy and every reckless choice impossible. While the press cycle crowned Lily the calm in the storm, I moved the next piece into place. Using the same holding firm that funded the note, I approached a small payment startup with a tool that shaved seconds off checkout. Their founder wanted reach and stability. I offered both by weaving them into the same tech stack now secured by my levers. We piloted the tool in 3 flagship stores. Conversion lifted in a week. Lily posted a clip from a store walk, smiling as she tapped a screen and said the future was fast and bright. The comments praised her vision. The data came to me. Each small win fed the story the board wanted to hear. The company was steady under Lily's hand. Each small win also fed the reality I was building. The company was steady because I held the scaffolding. The board scheduled a review to congratulate Lily and assess risk. I made sure 2 outside directors received quiet briefings through a banker who owed me favors, briefings that framed stability as the product of a broader network of partners and backstops. The message was clear without naming me: do not rock what is finally working. At the celebration dinner that followed, I attended as no one of note. The gala was a swirl of crystal and cameras, Lily radiant in silver, my parents glowing. I wore black, hair pinned back, a guest with a title bland enough to slide past curiosity. Lucas stood at my side, the picture of a patient investor, his hand never quite touching mine. We moved through the room like tide, listening more than we spoke. I watched Lily accept praise like oxygen and wondered, not for the first time, if she had ever asked why victories kept finding her after years of drift. If she had, she did not show it. She gave a toast about legacy and grace under pressure and looked at our father the way perfect daughters look at the men who taught them to pose for cameras and play to rooms. When the applause faded, I caught a stray reflection of myself in a window. The girl they called Spare, now the woman who wrote the script they were reading, and felt no urge to step nearer to the light. Not yet. The following week, I nudged another lever. A logistics firm that fed our e-commerce hubs had a renewal up for vote. I had bought a quiet stake months ago. I offered them a capacity loan on better terms than any bank, tied to performance bonuses that increased if a certain retail chain met volume targets. The chain was ours. The vote went through. Our costs fell. Lily announced a new era of efficiency. I smiled at the headline and filed it in my ledger. Not trophies, I reminded myself. Proof. The whispers about the ghost got louder. A columnist wrote that a silent operator had stitched together a net under the Parker brand and wondered whether the face at the top would ever name the hands beneath. My mother sent Lily the article with a note that said, "People love to invent myths." My phone stayed dark. That silence had weight, but it no longer bent me. I had traded the ache of being unseen for the clarity of seeing everything. On a clear Friday night, Lucas and I stood on a terrace after a small deal signing, the city spread in clean lines below us. He broke the quiet first. "You know you could take the bow now and they would still hand you the crown," he said. I shook my head. A bow invites an argument. I prefer a reveal they can't contest. He studied me, not with doubt, but with care. "Then say when." "Soon," I said, and the word felt like the first note of a song I had been tuning for years. I sent Marcus a single line before I slept, "The hinge is set." He replied with 2, "The door will swing. Be ready to walk through." I was. The next opportunity to tighten my grip came wrapped in a glossy invitation. It was for the annual Parker Foundation Gala, the event my family used to parade its influence to donors, clients, and the press. Lily was front and center on the invite, smiling in a designer gown, the caption hailing her as the face of the family legacy. In the past, I'd have thrown it away without a thought. This year, I accepted. My name on the guest list was meaningless to them, just another socialite in a black dress, but I wasn't going as the forgotten twin. I was going as the architect of their stability. I arrived with Lucas at my side, the perfect silent partner. We moved through the crowd quietly, shaking hands with key players I had been working with behind the scenes for years. Most didn't know the connection between me and Lily. That was intentional. The gala was a spectacle of chandeliers, champagne, and perfectly rehearsed smiles. I watched Lily float from table to table, thanking donors whose support I'd secured without her knowledge. She was radiant, confident, and completely dependent on the structure I had built. Halfway through the night, I slipped away to meet with 3 of the biggest names in our supply chain. The conversation was short, but the impact would be long-lasting. They agreed to extend exclusive terms with my holding firm, not the Parker Company directly. The terms would quietly shift more operational control into my hands. When I returned to the ballroom, Lily was on stage giving her speech. She spoke about leadership and the future, about how she was committed to preserving our grandfather's vision. I stood at the back, half in shadow, sipping my drink. When the applause came, it was warm, genuine. No one there knew she was standing on ground I had reinforced. After the event, my mother stopped me briefly. She smiled in that polite, detached way she used when speaking to acquaintances. "I didn't realize you were in town," she said. "Business," I replied simply. She didn't ask more. As she walked away, Lucas joined me. "You could end it tonight," he said under his breath. One sentence, one reveal. I shook my head. "Not yet. When I take the crown, there will be no argument left to make." And so I left without a scene, the music from the ballroom fading behind me. The mask would stay on for now, but it was beginning to slip. 2 weeks after the gala, the perfect fracture line appeared. A high-profile real estate project my family had been chasing for years, an entire luxury retail district being redeveloped in the city's financial hub, finally opened bidding. Winning it would secure long-term prestige and income for whoever controlled it. Lily's team went in aggressively, preparing a flashy presentation full of renderings and buzzwords. I already knew their numbers wouldn't hold up under scrutiny. Through a contact in the development firm, I learned they were looking for more than money. They wanted operational stability and a proven ability to run multiple brands seamlessly. That was my arena. Lucas and I spent 4 days crafting a proposal through one of my holding companies. It wasn't loud, but it was precise: tenant strategies that maximized foot traffic, partnerships with vendors I already owned, and long-term incentives for the developers. I included case studies of past projects I'd engineered, with the names changed just enough to keep my identity hidden but the impact undeniable. When the bids were reviewed, mine was chosen over the Parker submission without hesitation. The news broke on a Monday morning. Headlines read, "North Lane Partners secures landmark luxury district deal." The Parker Company wasn't even mentioned as a finalist. The moment I saw it, I knew Lily would be calling emergency meetings, scrambling for answers. The deal was more than a win, it shifted market perception. The industry now saw North Lane as the rising force in luxury retail, one that could outmaneuver even the most established names. That afternoon, I had a meeting with the development firm's board to finalize terms. I walked into the glass-walled conference room and found Lily there, sitting stiffly in one of the guest chairs. Her presence didn't rattle me; if anything, it confirmed how deeply the loss had cut. She glanced up as I took my seat, confusion flashing across her face. I smiled politely, as if we were strangers. "You're with them?" she asked quietly. "I am them," I replied, my tone even. Her mouth opened, but before she could speak again, the chair of the board entered, launching straight into the agenda. Throughout the meeting, I could feel her staring, trying to reconcile the twin she'd dismissed with the woman sitting across from her, calmly negotiating a deal she couldn't touch. When it ended, I stood and shook hands with the board members, my name echoing in their thanks. As I left, I passed Lily without another glance. Outside, Lucas was waiting, leaning casually against the wall. "She knows now," he said. "Not everything," I corrected. "Just enough to start doubting her own crown." The first crack had opened. I had no intention of letting it close. Lily didn't waste time after the development deal slipped through her fingers. Within a week, she was in full damage control mode, flooding the press with interviews about upcoming Parker initiatives and hinting at international expansion. It was a performance meant to reframe the loss as a temporary setback, but I could see the strain in every polished quote. She was trying to outrun the shadow I had just stepped into, and she didn't even realize the shadow was mine. While she distracted herself with publicity, I moved in on something much bigger. The distribution network that handled nearly half of the Parker Empire's luxury goods. It was an aging infrastructure, privately owned by a family with no direct loyalty to mine, and I had been quietly courting them for months through one of my shell companies. Now, with Lily's focus elsewhere, the timing was perfect. Lucas and I flew out to their estate under the guise of discussing a small joint venture. Over 3 days, we built trust over long dinners, late-night strategy sessions, and a detailed vision for how their network could modernize without losing its legacy appeal. On the final night, I presented them with an offer: sell controlling interest to my firm, keep the family name on the business, and receive a generous annual dividend while I invested in expansion. They signed before the week ended. The acquisition was discreet, no press, no headlines, but its impact was seismic. By owning the distribution network, I controlled the flow of products to the Parker Empire's most profitable retail channels. If I wanted, I could slow shipments, prioritize competitors, or negotiate terms that forced Lily's hand in any number of ways. I didn't need to use that leverage immediately. Just having it was enough to tilt the balance permanently in my favor. Back in the city, I arranged a private meeting with 2 Parker board members under the pretense of discussing collaboration opportunities with North Lane partners. I didn't mention my family connection, I didn't have to. I laid out a proposal for joint logistics optimization, offering them improved efficiency and cost savings in exchange for long-term contracts. They agreed on the spot, not realizing they had just committed themselves to a supply chain I owned outright. The next board meeting would be interesting. That weekend, I attended a high-profile art gala with Lucas, an event swarming with photographers, investors, and industry names. Lily was there too, wearing a gold gown and clinging to the arm of a well-known investor. She worked the room with practiced ease, but when her eyes met mine across the crowd, the mask slipped for just a second. There was recognition now, not just of who I was, but of what I had become. She made her way over eventually, leaving her date mid-conversation. "You've been busy," she said, her tone light but her eyes sharp. "Always," I replied, my smile unreadable. "And you? How's the expansion going?" She didn't answer right away, just studied me like she was trying to solve a puzzle she'd ignored for too long. "You could have told me," she finally said. "And you could have seen me," I replied, my voice low enough that only she could hear. Before she could respond, Lucas appeared at my side, resting a hand lightly at the small of my back. "We should get going," he said smoothly. I nodded and stepped away, leaving Lily standing in the middle of the gala, her expression tight. In the car, Lucas glanced over at me. "She's realizing the game isn't hers anymore." I looked out at the passing lights. "She's realizing it never was." The pieces were all in place now. The crown they'd given her so freely was balanced on foundations I controlled, and when the moment came to take it, there would be nothing she, or any of them, could do to stop me. The moment to closing came faster than I expected. A luxury tech partner, one of the Parker Empire's most valuable collaborators, announced they were seeking new equity investors to fund an ambitious expansion into global markets. It was the kind of deal that could cement Lily's position if she landed it, and dismantle her credibility if she didn't. I had already anticipated this move months ago. Through North Lane, I had been in quiet discussions with the tech firm's CFO, building trust and offering small but strategic support on previous launches. They knew I could deliver resources without red tape, and more importantly, without dragging them into the Parker family's endless politics. When the formal bidding process began, Lily put forward a flashy, PR-heavy pitch. It promised reach, branding, and prestige, but offered little in the way of operational support. Mine was the opposite: no theatrics, just a robust, fully funded plan backed by my logistics network, vendor relationships, and marketing pipelines. I made sure the numbers were airtight, the projections realistic, and the exit options tempting. The decision was made in less than a week. North Lane secured the equity deal, locking in not only a share of the tech partners' profits but also first rights on their innovations. Overnight, the Parker Empire was shut out from integrating those advancements into their stores. The board couldn't ignore it. From what my sources told me, heated arguments erupted behind closed doors. Some directors began openly questioning Lily's strategy, wondering why competitors, especially one as small as North Lane, kept beating them to critical partnerships. I knew that pressure would force her into a mistake, and she didn't disappoint. Desperate to reclaim control of the narrative, Lily announced an impromptu innovation summit to showcase the Parker Company's future. She didn't invite me. I made sure to be there anyway. Lucas and I walked into the summit's gleaming event hall with a small entourage of Northlane executives. The whispers started immediately. The keynote speaker, one of the industry's most respected voices, greeted me warmly in front of the cameras. That moment was enough to shift the energy in the room. Throughout the event, I could feel Lily's frustration growing. Every time she presented a plan, I knew the audience was thinking of the one Northlane had already executed. When the summit ended, investors who had once hovered at her side gravitated toward me instead, eager to talk, to connect, to schedule meetings. By the time Lucas and I stepped back into the car, my phone was full of new opportunities that should have been hers. I didn't smile, not yet. The reveal was coming, but when I finally let the mask drop, I wanted it to be in front of every board member, every investor, and every person who had ever looked at me and seen nothing more than the shadow. That day was close now. Very close. It was the board meeting that set the stage for the reveal. My sources inside told me it was supposed to be a closed-door strategy session to address competitive threats, but the tone shifted the moment my name came up. Northlane Partners, the so-called mystery firm that had outbid them, outmaneuvered them, and now held key control points in their supply chain. They didn't know the connection yet, but they were circling it. That was enough for me to make my move. 2 days later, I sent formal notice requesting to attend the next shareholder meeting as the representative for several minority investors who, collectively, now controlled more stock than Lily herself. I knew the letter would rattle them. It was written in my name, no aliases, no layers, just Emma Parker, in black and white. The meeting was held in the company's main boardroom, a place I hadn't set foot in since the day of the will reading. I arrived early with Lucas, both of us in understated suits that let the weight of our presence speak for itself. When Lily walked in, the color drained from her face. My parents were right behind her, their confusion poorly masked as politeness. The meeting began as expected, but the moment the agenda shifted to operational dependencies and key partnerships, I spoke. Calm, clear, and deliberate, I outlined exactly how Northlane's network had been sustaining the Parker empire for the last 2 years, through logistics, vendor contracts, distribution rights, and now technology integration. I presented the numbers, the growth charts, the risk assessments, all without raising my voice. Then I said it plainly, the crown you gave Lily rests on foundations I own. I haven't come to take it by force. I've come to show you that you've been answering to me all along. The room went silent. My father's hand tightened on the table. Lily's eyes glossed with disbelief and something sharper, fear. I let the silence sit before continuing. I am offering to keep that crown steady, but it will be on my terms. If you want stability, you work with me. If not, the network I built can serve others just as easily. There were murmurs, a few startled glances exchanged. The meeting ended without a vote, but I walked out knowing the shift had happened. Lucas held the door for me, his expression unreadable until we were in the hall. That was the mask dropping, he said. And now? I adjusted my jacket and kept walking. Now they decide whether they want to keep pretending Lily runs their empire, or admit the truth to themselves. Either way, the crown was already mine. The decision came faster than I expected. 3 days after the shareholder meeting, I received a formal invitation from the board to return for a leadership restructuring discussion. It was their polite way of admitting the obvious, they couldn't keep the company steady without me. I arrived alone this time, dressed in a sharp black suit with nothing flashy to distract from my presence. The boardroom was quieter than usual, the tension almost brittle. My father looked older, my mother distant, and Lily. She looked like she hadn't slept. They tried to open with small talk, but I cut through it with the same precision I'd used to build my empire. Let's not waste time. You've seen the numbers. You know the control points. I've been holding your stability together without asking for credit. That changes now. I outlined my terms: partial integration of Parker operations under North Lane's systems, my appointment as chair of the strategy committee, and veto rights on any major acquisition or divestment. In exchange, I'd continue to keep the supply chain, technology partnerships, and distribution fully aligned with the Parker brand. It wasn't a hostile takeover. It was a deal they couldn't refuse. The vote was unanimous. Even my father didn't argue, though I could see the word sitting on the edge of his tongue. Lily stayed quiet until after the meeting, when she caught me in the hallway. "You could have taken it all," she said. "Why didn't you?" I met her eyes and let her see the truth. "Because I wanted you to know exactly who I became without your help. And because one day, you'll realize you were never the son, you were standing in front of one." She didn't follow me out. That night, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, the city glittering below, a glass of wine in my hand. Lucas joined me, leaning on the railing beside me. "So, this is it? Victory?" I smiled faintly. "No. This is just control. Victory is knowing I never needed them to give it to me. I had been the shadow, the spare, the sister they chose to forget. Now I was the architect of the empire they thought belonged to Lily. And the most satisfying part? They all knew it, and there was no going back.